Very good morning, friends. Hope you all can hear me. Just give me a confirmation from your end that I'm audible. We actually have invited the workshop people also to come and join here, but it seems that very just Devmini is there, and I expected a lot to come in. So this is typically the very nature of some of the uh, facilities that we made available for school children because they are now at a point where they are transitioning from school education to somewhere else. And, there are a lot of panicking evidences also coming in. So, for example, the school timetable and the exam timetable, those who are trying to take the exam once again, they have to get ready for that. So that I know that there are difficulties and there are little and different motivations towards attending the workshop. But anyway, to make it a point that we completed this session as well as we get already enrolled students of Ecosystem program also to the this workshop because some of the content that I am discussing here are partly an addition to what we do in the Ecosystem program. So let us go ahead and make it a point that we complete with whoever available here. We have about 5 students. That's totally fine. And I'm glad to have at least 5 here. And with 5 of you guys, I'm going to do the second episode of the workshop and make the recording available for anyone who might wish to join it. Right? Is that all right? So today I'll be actually conducting the whole session in simple English, which I'm sure you all will be able to understand. Is that all right? For Sashni and Sasna, I'm sure it's going to be all right. I'm asking from Anusari, Devmini, and Sanij also whether going on in English medium alone would be all right. Okay, perfect. So with that, we have to go ahead. In this episode of the workshop, what we are actually trying to do is to give you an insight about the very first challenge that you face in STEM degree program. That is going to be you're switching from perhaps you are coming from English medium background or else Sinhalese or Tamil medium background. That is your school background. And from that, you are getting ready for English medium STEM degree. As we discussed in the first workshop also, this is a challenge because you not only begin to listen to lectures in English, but also you start to behave differently. In school, you had a limited curriculum, limited workload, and limited lesson load, and from which you happen to learn something, and from the things taught to you, there is an exam paper on which you have to respond. But when it comes to university, it's going to be really, really different. Why different? Because in university, you are not given a limited curriculum, but you are just given a curriculum which indicates just some topics, but how much and how far you are going to navigate on that topic is a decision made by you, right? So the very difference between school and university is that in school, your syllabus or the content of the learning matters that you are expected to learn is limited. But in university, you are given just an idea of certain topics, but how much do you or should you know about that topic, or rather the module is unlimited because it's from its beginning to up to now. So let me simply convert this into an understandable Sinhalese version. ඉස්කෝලේදී පොතේ ඔයාට ඉගෙන ගන්න තිබුණේ සීමිත විෂය පදාසයක්. ඒක සිලබස් එකේ එහෙම නැත්නම් වගේ ටෙක්ස්ට් බුක් එකේ දීලා තියෙන විෂය ප්‍රමාණය පවණයි. ටෙක්ස්ට් බුක් එකෙන් සිලබස් එකෙන් එළිය කිසි දෙයක් ඔයාගෙන් ප්‍රශ්න කරන්නේ නැහැ විභාගයේදී. ඒක තමයි පාසල් ක්‍රමය. නමුත් ඔයා විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට ආවට පස්සේ ඔයාට ටෙක්ස්ට් බුක් එකක් ලැබෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඔයාට ලැබෙන්නේ ඒ වෙනුවට විෂය සීමාව පිළිබඳ පුංචි සටහනක් සහිත topic list එකක් විතරයි. ඒ topic list එක හම්බුනහම ඒකේ තියෙන topics ඒ පටන් ගත්ත තැන ඉඳලා මේ මොහොත දක්වා ලෝකයේ ඒ විෂය කොච්චර දුරට විකාශනය වෙලාද කියන සමස්ත පදාසයම විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේදී ඔයා දැනගන්න ඕන. දැන් මේක කරන්න වෙන්නේ ඔයා සිංහලෙන් ඉංග්‍රීසි වලට ට්‍රාන්ස්ෆර් වෙන මේ බෑග්ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් එක අස්සෙම. right? ඒතර challenges දෙකක් තියෙන එකක් තමයි you have the language barrier. Number two, you have the subject boundary barrier. So you have to navigate almost everything in the particular subject that you learn without giving them in a textbook or any other material given to you as the limit. So that unlimited workload has to be covered in English medium. One of the first challenges that you face in this particular exercise is your vocabulary. So today, in this session, I'm going to help you how to overcome this vocabulary challenge and what are the strategies that you can follow to overcome that vocabulary challenge. And I'll be introducing you the vocabulary strategies that you can try out to overcome that challenge. That's number one. Number two, we'll be trying out a little bit of a STEM presentation, or rather writing exercise with special vocabulary required for you, that is describing mechanisms, that is part of the STEM workload. And finally, I'll be teaching you what and how with the Acalistem program you can overcome all these troubles that you are supposed to face in the university. So let's move on. Today, we'll be trying to achieve 3 learning outcomes. අද දවසේ අපි මේ පාඩම අවසානයේ ඔබ ලබා ගත යුතු හැකියාවන් ලෙස කාරණා 3ක් අඳුරගන්න. Number 1, you understand the vocabulary dynamics and the academic word list. So I told you the first challenge you face in university is going to be your vocabulary, because you think that you know English, and yes, you know some English, but the English required in university is going to be different, as we discussed last time. So today, we are going to understand something called dynamics of vocabulary, with which you are going to find a way how to deal with vocabulary challenge effectively. And today, I'll be introducing you something called academic word list, which is actually the key vocabulary strategy that you can use in your STEM degree program. Secondly, using the academic word list inputs and using the vocabulary dynamics we learned today, we are going to write a clear description of a mechanism, Scotchok, which I have shared last week. So we are going to try out something that we are going to do in a university in a trial. And finally, I'll be introducing you with the Acalistem program, on which we will be resolving all these problems. And I'll be introducing you to the Acalistem program offered by University of Mogadore as well. So let's move on what we are supposed to do. So let's begin. Why vocabulary matters in STEM? ඇයි පුතේ මේ vocabulary කියන කාරණේ ප්‍රධාන කාරණයක්, ප්‍රධාන challenge එකක් වෙන්නේ? මේකට උත්තරේ මම ඉස්සෙල්ලම ඔයාගෙන් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඔයාට vocabulary දැනට කීයක් විතර තියෙනවද? ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවේ කොච්චර විතර වචන ඔයාට පුළුවන්ද? ඔයා හිතන්නේ STEM degree එකක් follow කරන්න යද්දී vocabulary එක ඔයාගේ කොයිතරම් ප්‍රමාණයක් විය යුතුද? මට දෙන්න චූටි උත්තරයක් ඔයාලගේ chat එකෙන්. approximately කොච්චර විතර vocabulary එකක් ඔයාලට තියෙන්න ඕන වෙයිද? STEM degree එක English medium වලින් කරගන්න. I'm waiting for your responses on chat, please. Some answers on chat. Yes, vocabulary. Yes, Devani. Yes, for describing something, something in the science, something STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, something. Yeah. How much do you think should be your vocabulary size? So Sanija makes a guess around 2000 to 3000 words. Okay, okay. So those are simple guesses that you all make. And Sashni indicates that, yeah, AWL alone will do it. Okay. Now, enough. Let's clear that doubt right now. Okay. Here we are. Now remember, vocabulary, precise vocabulary, and of course, the right word in your communication is really, really an important matter in STEM. පරිවචනයේ නිවැරදි පාරිභාෂික වචන මාලාව terminology කියන එක අතිශය වැදගත් පුතේ STEM communication වල. ඇයි ඒ? It's because STEM is a language heavy subject. What do you mean by language heavy? Now, when you're describing a simple everyday emotion or an experience or any other subject matter, you actually can use your everyday language to describe it. But if you're going to describe a STEM subject matter, you know that it requires lots of things like definitions, variables, conditions, context in which certain things become valid and invalid. So it's a language heavy discipline. STEM කියලා කියන්නේ පුතේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි එදිනෙදා කතා බහ කරන විදිහට සාමාන්‍ය සංකල්පයක් විග්‍රහ කරගන්නවා වගේ ලේසියෙන් අපි දන්න භාෂාවෙන් විග්‍රහ කරගත හැකි විෂය පදාසයක් නෙවෙයි. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ඔයා ගන්නකො ගුරුත්වාකර්ෂණය වගේ සංකල්පයක් අපි හැමෝටම තේරෙන. දැන් මේ සංකල්පය විස්තර කරද්දී ඔයාට ඒකට අදාළ නිර්වචනයක් තියෙනවා. ඒක භාවිත වන සීමිත පදාසයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ එය එක්තරා variables එහෙම නැත්නම් කිසියම් සංරචක ගණනාවක් මත රඳාපවතින සංකල්පයක්. ඒත් සමගම ඒක භාවිත වන කිසියම් සන්දර්භයක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට මෙන්න මේ සීමාවන් සහ මෙන්න මේ පිරිවිතරයන් ඇතුලේ තමයි STEM ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ. එතකොට සාමාන්‍ය ජීවිතයේ අත්දැකීමක් විග්‍රහ කරගන්නවා වගේ STEM සංකල්පයක් විග්‍රහ කරගන්න අපිට ලේසි නෑ. ඒ නිසායි අපි කියලා කියන්නේ STEM කියලා කියන්නේ language heavy matter එකක්. It's a language heavy matter. ඒ නිසා නිවැරදි vocabulary එක පාවිච්චි කිරීම අතිශය වැදගත්. ඔබ නිශ්චිතව එතෙන්ට අදාළ වචනේ පාවිච්චි කරන එක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම වැදගත්. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔබ එතන කියන කාරණේ නිශ්චිතව පැහැදිලි වෙන්නේ නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපි යන දෙවෙනි කාරණයට. Concepts are carried through precise words. Now, ගුරුත්වාකර්ෂණය ප්‍රභා සංශ්ලේෂණය මම මේක පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ සරලම ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ පාසල තුල ඔබ දන්න දේවල්. Metamorphosis, photosynthesis, gravity, and these concepts that you learn as simple concepts in your school, you know, when you are trying to describe them, you find even it is really difficult in your own mother tongue. බලන්නකො ප්‍රභා සංශ්ලේෂණය වගේ කාරණයක්, ගුරුත්වාකර්ෂණය වගේ කාරණයක්. මේ වගේ කාරණයක් ඔබේ භාෂාවෙන්, ඔබ දන්නා භාෂාවෙන් විස්තර කරන්න ගියත් ඔබට ටිකක් චැලෙන්ජින් නේද? එහෙමනම් අපි නොදන්නා හෝ අපිට අලුත් භාෂාවක් වන ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවෙන් මේක විස්තර කරන්න ගියොත් කොයිතරම් චැලෙන්ජින් වේවිද? right? එතකොට නිවැරදි වචන භාවිතාව අතිශය වැදගත් ස්ටෙප් එක. තුන්වෙනි කාරණේ තමයි පුතේ, ඔබ නිවැරදි වචනේ වෙනුවට ඔබේ හිතට එන සරල වචනයක් පාවිච්චි කරොත්, එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔබ විකල්ප වචනයක් පාවිච්චි කරොත්, ඔබ සමහර විට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න යන STEM concept එක ඒ විදිහට sannivedana වෙන්නේ නැහැ. If you are going to use a random word in place of the right word, ඇත්ත වචනේ වෙනුවට ඔබ හිතට එන යම් වචනයක් පාවිච්චි කළොත් සාමාන්‍ය සංකල්පයකදී ඒක අවබෝධ වෙනවා වුණත් STEM සංකල්පයකදී මේක ලේසි වැඩක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මෙන්න මේ නිසා පුතේ STEM ඉගෙන ගනිද්දී ඔබට vocabulary අතිශය වැදගත්. ඒ නිසායි අපි episode 2 vocabulary challenge එක විදියට ගත්තේ ඔයාගේ workshop එකේ. මේක තමයි අපි ඔයගොල්ලන්ට දෙන අන්තිම free workshop එක. And in this, even my ACALISTEM students are also involved. So I have invited them also to hear, because then they also get a second chance of learning this. Okay, so let's move on and see how can we overcome this vocabulary challenge. Now I'm going to introduce you something called vocabulary dynamics. What is a vocabulary dynamic, or rather word dynamic? දැන් මම මේක සිංහලට පරිවර්තනය කරොත් වචනවල ගතිකතා ඔබට සිංහලෙන් තේරෙනවද ඒ කාරණය? Dynamics of vocabulary. Do you understand it in English? Just give me a simple response. Yes or no? Shashni gives yes. Okay. Yes, because Shashni, we discussed those matters. Yeah. What about the others? Hermione, Sanija, and Minsadi. Do you have any idea what is vocabulary dynamics, or rather dynamics of words? Okay. Rather than asking whether you know it or don't know, let me try to explain something. Yes. As you can see on screen, words have its meaning in the dictionary. When you refer to the dictionary, you will be able to find a meaning. We call this particular meaning that you find in the dictionary is the denotation, or rather the universally accepted meaning definition given for a word. ඔයා ඩික්ෂනරි එකට ගිහිල්ලා කිසියම් වචනයක තේරුමක් හෙව්වම පුතේ ඒ වචනේ ඩිනොටේෂන් එක එතන ගිහිල්ලා දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ විශ්වීය වශයෙන් ඒ වචනයට දීලා ඇති නිර්වචනය එතන දීලා තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මගේ පුතේ, but when you use the meaning of a word in the context, it may be different from the meaning that you find in the dictionary. Right? ඒකට හේතුව තමයි words actually change their meaning by the context they appear. කිසියම් වචනයක් එයා යෙදෙන සන්දර්භය අනුව එහි අර්ථය වෙනස් කරගන්න. මෙන්න මෙහෙම යෙදෙන සන්දර්භය අනුව අර්ථය වෙනස් වීමට අපි කියනවා vocabulary dynamics. We call this changing nature of words meaning depending on the context in which it appear as vocabulary dynamics. Secondly, if you simply take the words, particularly in academic context, particularly in universities, in STEM subjects, in definitions, in science, and in particularly in academic publications, words behave differently, right? And how certain words appear once and again and what they do in the sentence actually makes these dynamics. වචනයක් යෙදෙන තැන අනුව යෙදෙන වාර ගණන අනුව සහ යෙදෙන වාක්‍යයේ සන්දර්භය අනුව වගේම ඒ යෙදෙන අරමුණ අනුව ඒ වචනේ අර්ථය තනින් තැනට වෙනස් වෙන්නට පුළුවන්. මෙන්න මේ වෙනස් වීමට අපි කියනවා vocabulary dynamics කියලා. ඉස්කෝලේදී ඔබ ඉගෙන ගත්ත ඩික්ෂනරි එක බලලා මීනින්ග්ස් ඉගෙන ගන්න. එහාට ගිහිල්ලා එහෙම දැනගත්ත මීනින්ග්ස් කන්ටෙක්ස්ට් එකේ පාවිච්චි වෙන හැටි තමයි ඉගෙන ගන්න යන්නේ. Shall we go ahead? If you have got an idea about what is vocabulary dynamics, we can go to the next slide. Give me a thumbs up if you are done with it. Thank you, Sashni. What about the others? Thank you, Sanija. There are many thanks. Minsadi and Fatima, please give me your responses. Okay, perfect, perfect. We'll move on. Now, when you take vocabulary, they are coming in different, let me say, facets. ඔයා දන්න වචන උනත් ඒවා යෙදෙන සන්දර්භයන් අනුව විවිධ ස්වරූපයන් ගන්නවා. දැන් බලන්නකෝ එදිනෙදා අපි පාවිච්චි කරන everyday common words, come, go, think, speak, and so on. These words are actually everywhere in every discourse. අපි එදිනෙදා ජීවිතයේදී පාවිච්චි කරන සරල වචන සමුදාය අපි academic English වලත්, technical English වලත්, philosophical English වලත් ඕනෑම variety එකක ඒවා ඒ විදිහටම පාවිච්චි වෙනවා. එතකොට general common everyday words නැතුව ඉස්සරහට කොහොමත් යන්න බෑ. ඒවා අනිවාර්යයි. ඒවා තමයි මේක ඇතුලේ තියෙන පාදමය පදනම කේන්ද්‍රය. So the general words that we use in everyday world, we call them general vocabulary. They actually create the basis of every other disciplinary relevant vocabulary. So if it is science communication, if it is engineering communication, if it is business communication, if it is academic communication, if it is medical communication, whatever communication it is, general common everyday word list is a must. So that makes the basis of vocabulary at the onset. Second, what is academic? Academic vocabulary is basically specific vocabulary that are particularly appearing in subject context. Say, for example, if you take physics, in physics, there is a particular set of vocabulary relevant to physics subjects, right? You know what they are. And if you take medicine, or rather if you take biology, you have biologically relevant terms relevant to it. If you take astronomy, the astronomically relevant subjects are there. So we call that the academic vocabulary. Now we distinguish general vocabulary, which is a must for every discipline. And then there comes the academic vocabulary, which means subject-specific things, words and phrases that we use in vocabulary. So on top of general vocabulary, in addition to general vocabulary, you have to get the academic vocabulary also into your everyday use if you are to master STEM subjects. And the third thing is technical terms. Technical terms are particularly, when you are dealing with, just imagine that you're going to report something in your laboratory, chemistry laboratory. So lab experiment, what you're doing in the lab and how the lab setting uses certain technical terms has a different set of words associated with that. So what තේරෙන්න ඕනේ දැන් general, academic and technical කියලා පිරිවිතරයන් තුනක තියෙනවා vocabularies. දැනට ඔයා දැනගෙන ඉන්නේ general vocabulary වෙන්න පුළුවන්, academic vocabulary වෙන්න පුළුවන්. සමහර විට technical vocabulary යම් ප්‍රමාණයක් ගන්නවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් ඔයා මුහුණ දෙන්න යන STEM challenge එකේදී general, vocabulary එක විතරක් ප්‍රමාණවත් නැහැ. ඒක අත්‍යවශ්‍යයි. ඒක හොඳට master කරන්න ඕනේ. Number 2, academic vocabulary එක ඔයා deal වෙන සියලු subjects වල academic vocabulary එක ඔයාගේ part එකක් වෙන්න ඕනේ. In addition, technical vocabulary එකත් ඔයාගේ aspect එකේ ඔයාගේ vocabulary field එකේ කොටසක් වෙන්න ඕනේ. Right? දැන් ඔයාලට තේරෙනවා from general to academic to technical. So you are expanding your horizon of vocabulary from your general vocabulary to academic vocabulary, subject specific, and technical vocabulary, the field specific vocabulary. Did you get the point? Did you understand how this vocabulary expands from what you already know to what you don't know? If you indicate me that with your emotions, maybe with thumbs up at least, I'll be able to. Thank you, Sashni. Can I hear from the rest? Thank you, Devamini. Well, I think that's going to be the case of the others as well. Okay. So let us look at a quick check, quiz one. What do you think out of A, B, C, and D options? What do you think is the academic word? Very simple question. Respond me in chat. Out of these four, what comes in academic? Which word is? I got responses from Fatima and Sasni, and just got Devmini's response. And I want the others' responses as well. Well, now, can I hear from Ayas? Okay. Now, most of you voted for calculated as an academic word, whereas beautiful, oxygen, and happy are not academic, but oxygen is perhaps an academic or technical. Right now, you see, if you take simple words like beautiful and happy, they come within general vocabulary. And if you just look at oxygen, that's a technical term, right? Because it's a name given to a particular gas, so that it's technical. But what is academic here is calculate. Now you see, when you look at your vocabulary, you should be able to distinguish between which sphere of vocabulary should these belong. Are they general vocabulary items? Are they technical vocabulary items? And are they academic vocabulary items? This is just a simple quiz to check whether you got the difference between technical, academic, and general vocabulary. Good. All of you have got it. So let's move on to the next simple question. Now I'm going to introduce you to the academic vocabulary. Now for this, I'm not going to waste a lot of time because the science research has found an easy, very affordable, and of course, very effective way of introducing academic vocabulary to your academic world. So this is a finding by a language scientist, linguist, Professor Avril Coxett, and he identifies 570 word families, and he finds that these 570 words and their families are frequently used in academic vocabulary list. Now, in the next slide, you are going to view a video on which you'll realize how academic vocabulary is going to be supportive of your STEM. Shall we go to the video, please? Give me a thumbs up if you are ready to move on to that. Yes. Let's move on. I'm going to switch off my camera and my audio. I'm disturbing you here in the video to ask one question. You have to respond it in your chat. Now, Avril Coxhead's academic word list actually represents not everything in academic words. As the video indicated, what percentage does academic word list cover out of the entire word list that you should know? How much from your entire vocabulary will this AWL be covering? It was there in the video. You can respond it. Yes, Sanija? Yes, Sashni? Yes. What about the others? Fatima, you messed it with its general service list that covers 80%, but not AWL. AWL covers just 10% of your big vocabulary required. Okay, can I get the response from the others? Now, one thing I want to clear here is, now your general service list is the biggest list, but when you read through academic text, you will find that most of the words are familiar to you, but there is a very little content that is not clear to you. And remember that very little thing, very little components, or rather few words that you don't know when you read an academic text actually comes from academic word list. So when you refer to academic word list, you first come to know these difficult, new academic jargonic words. So that is the idea given here. Now, Avril Coxhead presents it in 570 items. And now I'm going back to the video. I'm going to be muted and I'm going to introduce you to the video back again from where we stopped. Yes. And we'll discuss what comes therein with the pause while the video goes. So when you simply refer to a simple Google search of academic word list, you'll be able to reach what these words are. But before that, you should know what it contains. It actually contains 10 sublists of the bigger academic word list. Now, I told you Avril happened to find 570 different word families, and she puts them in 10 different lists. What these lists are? Actually, there are 10 lists. First list gives the most frequent academic words. Most frequent academic words in the sense, out of the 570 words that she found as families contributing to academic word list, she listed out the first 60 words which are the most frequent words. And then the second most frequent word set that is in the second list, and third most frequent, and so on. And when you master this academic vocabulary list, you have to start from the academic word list sublist 1, because it gives the most frequent words, set of words, 60 set of words which appear in every academic text. Is it clear, Buddha? Can I get a response from on it? Thank you, Sashni. Thank you, Devmini. Yes. Well, let's move on. And here, now, they produce us even the very items that appear in academic list 1. Not all the words, but some of the words from academic word list sublist 1. Let's watch. You have to learn these words first. AWN1. This is very important. Now look at. We told that these are not just words, they are representing a word family. Now look at, in academic word list sublist 1, there is this very word vary. When you take vary as the central root word, now you see that vary itself is creating so many other sub members of the same vocabulary item. Just look at vary is a word that gives birth for variable, variation, variance, variability, invariably, varied, varying, variant. You see, one particular word is there, which is what is given in the academic word list. But remember that that particular word represents a family of words. So if you take vary, it gives birth to variable, variance, variability, invariable, varied, varying, variant, and variation. So that one word gives birth to many words around it, and that is made out of the root of it. So this is how you understand the very word list of academic word list. Now you see, you're starting from a very simple thing, and when you apply the word dynamics into it, you'll be able to understand the different varieties of the same word that you can find in academic world. Did you get that point? Can I get a response from you? Well, let's move on. Now I'm stopping here. How to use the academic word list? Quite simple. Start from the sublist 1, which gives you most common words. And then know the base word and the other associated words of the same base root form. And then the second aspect that you have to do is when you're reading through STEM texts, use a particular highlighter to indicate academic word list 1 items. Use highlighter and see how that word functions in context, right? And then once you get to know about that particular word, use the words, not just the meaning and the word alone, use it in context. Those are the steps that Avril Cox said and us suggest for you to master the academic vocabulary. And so I wish how to deal with academic vocabulary or rather academic word list is clear. Is it? Now you have the solution for one solution for your academic challenge, academic vocabulary challenge. What is it? You can now make use of your Internet Explorer, Google search or anything, and you can search for academic word list. And there one word is actually representing a family. And then you master the academic word list families. And while mastering, you move on. And that gives you an idea about the 10% of difficult words that appear in academic genre of your STEM reading, right? Okay. Why academic word list is most important for STEM students? We should know that. It is because you are now going to refer not to simply the tuition notes or school notes or textbooks given to you, but in your university life, you are given bigger textbooks. You are given a list of textbooks that you have to refer in the library, and you are invited to refer to research papers, and you are invited to refer to the encyclopedias. And remember, the AWL items appear in textbooks and research papers once and again and often. So if you have the meaning in your mind, the way in which those words used in the context, these academic texts and reading them and understanding is going to be easy. And not only easy, that actually improves your reading speed because you don't need to stop and see and refer to the dictionary to get the meaning of that because you're mastering it side by side with AWL so that you improve your reading speed. And when you know the words, vocabulary, and when you read them in the context, and when you get them in the context, that makes your academic writings easy, right? So that's why we thought of taking academic vocabulary and vocabulary strategies as the first thing that we should introduce you in the very first place. So can I hear, or rather, can I read your response to AWL, academic word list, and vocabulary strategy that I've been discussing so far? Are you now bit confident or familiar with how to find a solution to an academic vocabulary issue? Did you get an idea on that? Respond me in a complete sentence to chat. I'll give you 1 minute to think of it and respond me how you felt it. Friends, I'm waiting for your responses. Thank you, Sashni. Now, what I'm telling you, Sashni, and all of you is master the AWL 10 sublists first before you get into university or elsewhere. Because when you know the very, very basic academic word list that might appear in academic text, your reading and your writing and your understanding is going to be easy. Thank you, Sashni. I want to hear from the others as well. Paniji, you said you got an idea about the AWL. What idea you got? That's what actually I want to know. Thank you, Saniji, for your response. What idea have you got? Did you get an idea how to master the word lists and how to begin with it, where to find it, and all that? I want everyone to respond, please. Yes, Sasna, thank you for the elaborated response. Sanija and Sasna responded. What about the others? Minsadi. Okay. Minsadi, now you have a way ahead and way to master it. The results were significant. We will analyze the data. So you are simply highlighting them and trying to make use of them in context. Okay, perfect, perfect. Get me? I want to hear your response as well. Yes. Yes, get me. Reading news articles is good, but before you read to news articles, what we suggest is first navigate through AWL from list 1 to 10 and master them. Have your personal vocabulary calendar with you. And while mastering that, you can try out reading articles, news articles, science articles, and so on to improve on your vocabulary. Well, perfect. With that, we can move on to what is to come. So these are some of the academic word list words. You see, analyze, concept, method, function, significant, and all that. You can find them in the, well, there's a quick quiz. Choose the best academic word to fill this blank. Send me quickly. The results were very, Mhm. Thank you, Sanij and Sasni. I want the others also to respond. Thank you, Ms. Sadi. Thank you, Sasna. But Sasna, do you think A is an academic word? Hmm? The results were very nice. That is simple everyday use. But if you are to make it academic, what is the word that goes best? Yes, Devmani, you got it? Yeah. Yes, Sasna, you got it. Yes. Yes. Perfect. Perfect. So we'll move ahead. This is the second strategy that I'm teaching you for mastering vocabulary. From now onwards, bring a nice piece of what we call notebook. You can find an expensive notebook from the bookshop because you are going to master a degree in the forthcoming years. And before mastering the degree, you need to know how to master it perfectly, for which you need to start with your vocabulary, right? Build a personal glossary. Start with AWL. Get the terms from there. Get its meaning. Get an example sentence. And other than that, you can use the term, meaning, example sentences, as well as you can look at other members of the same family. Say, for example, I happen to be disconnected. This is Sri Lanka, Buddha. I'm sorry. Yeah. What I was telling is, have a vocabulary personal glossary in which you can start with AWL. You can get the term, meaning, and example sentence. That is the first step. But the second step could be picking up the particular terms other family members. If you could see in the first vocabulary subgroup, you found vary, and in relevance to vary, as members of the family of the vary, you found variable, variation, invariably, and so on. You can get the other related vocabulary members of the same family closer to the same term, so that such a personal glossary will be your strategy to try it out. Make that glossary, right? And keep it as a sort of a blueprint that you carry everywhere. When you read any text, you can simply go through that manually. And this manual going and manually having a personal glossary is very much important, because there your handwriting involves, your mind involves, your eye involves, and all of your sensory perceptions are involved. Then the experience is going to be rich. It's not like simply double clicking or right clicking and getting the synonyms. It's a complex process, but that complex process actually registers the vocabulary item in your mind. So that's it. That's vocabulary strategy one. And we are moving to the other strategies. The second vocabulary strategy. Look, notice word families. Now, you got one word and see the family members of it. Analyze, analysis, analytical. So you'll find the other members in it, which I actually happen to explain in the first strategy as well. And the third strategy, this is the most important thing. Learn words in context, not isolation. Now, when you refer to the dictionary and get the meaning, you learn the words in isolation. But if you put them in word family members, you're not learning it in isolation, but you're expanding your context to the family members. This is a second strategy, actually a third strategy, where you can learn the word in context, not in isolation. Look at the very word force. Now look at this very word, force. You know the meaning of it. I took a very simple word to help you navigate. Now, the dictionary gives a particular meaning. What is it? A force means a push or a pull. That is the dictionary meaning, right? But if you just look at the very word in the context, this is in Newton's law, right? When a force is applied to an object, it accelerates. So you put the word in context. Now, with force, you understand lots of things. Now, there you understand force actually causes motion. And you learn force is linked to acceleration. And further, you come to know the word connects to Newton's laws. Now, you see, force, quite simply, in simple dictionary meaning is one thing, but when you apply it in STEM context, vocabulary in context gives you much, much, much wider understanding of it. So those are vocabulary strategies I thought of exploring with you. So give me your response regarding how well and how prepared you are now as a beginner to a degree, how prepared you are now with trying out with your vocabulary strategies. Are you confident now? Because in the next episode, we are going to look at something a little difficult and we are going to try out some writing with this vocabulary in mind. And if you need, I can give you about 1 to 2 minutes break. Think of all the strategies we learned and give me a response, how confident you are. And now it is 11:10. By 11:15, we can meet and go ahead with the rest of the story. So friends, can we go ahead? So the little vocabulary strategies that we learned so far are of course not so difficult, but when the material is given to you, that is AWL, and when we teach you how from one item to the other items that you can improve your vocabulary knowledge and grasp, and when the other strategies are also given, you realize that vocabulary is not going to be a big deal. When you are familiar with your vocabulary, then the rest is not going to be anywhere difficult. It's not going to be difficult at all. So let's move and see how we can apply this in context. Can we move ahead, friends? Yes. Now we are going to move from grasping vocabulary to writing. Transition from vocabulary to writing. Actually, when you communicate in STEM and in any academic discipline, your vocabulary supports you profoundly in clearly explaining what you are telling, right? We are going to try and apply it in a mechanism description. Now, writing a mechanism is a simple part of STEM communication. Mechanisms are simply the conversions of pure science into its technology and applied fields. So when a mechanism is in place, it's engineering, or rather it's a technical concept that you need to communicate to the rest of the non-technical audience. Now, we are going to navigate how a mechanism description could be materialized. Are you all ready to that? If you are ready to take this challenge, give me a thumbs up so that I can move. Thank you, Devmini. Thank you, Sanija. Thank you, Sashni. Okay, we are moving on. What is a mechanism? Quite simple. A mechanism is a system of moving parts, and these parts are moving to perform a particular function. So that is simply a mechanism. So we are going to try out a simple mechanism today, which actually you have been given in my previous workshop as a video. As its last video, I have given this particular mechanism. And I told you that we are going to try out describing this mechanism in today's workshop. So we are going to do that right now. So we are going to try an example mechanism. We call this the Scotch yoke. I'm sure before we move on to discuss what is a Scotch yoke and its mechanism, I'm inviting you to think of Scotch yoke mechanism and tell me a simple application of Scotch yoke in your everyday experiences. Can anyone think of the mechanism of Scotch yoke is used somewhere? If you use this particular item in everyday applications, I'm sure that you will be able to distinguish where it appears in your everyday life. Can you guess? Scotch yoke එක අපේ එදිනෙදා ජීවිතේ පාවිච්චි වෙන තැනක් වාට නිකමට හිතා ගන්න පුළුවන් නම් මට කියන්න අපේ අවබෝධය පහසුයි එතකොට. රෙස්පොන්ඩ් කරන්න මට chat එකේ. Sewing machine. Okay. Yes. Sachin, you are correct. Much more simpler versions. The sewing machines හැමෝම දැකලා නැතුව වෙන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් මෙන්න මේ දේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ හැමෝම පාවිච්චි කරලා තියෙන දෙයක්. ඔයාලට ඒක මතක් වුණේ නැත්නම් සුදුමයි. It is wonderful if you could not recognize where it appears. Yes, it is there everywhere, every day. I'm sure you all must be having one of these tools in your pocket even. Can't you guess where? Shashi responded with one example. The others, please respond with one example. In vehicles, there are many, yes, perhaps. In vehicles, in houses, in your room, maybe in your drawer, everywhere, this particular mechanism is employed. Yes, there are many. When you say in vehicles, can you specifically specify where in vehicles? Maybe in engine, yeah. But be simpler. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ වැඩි මේකනේ පොඩි දෙයක් දුන්නම හරිය සංකීර්ණව හිතනවා. Simple තැනක තියෙන ඔයගොල්ලන්ට අමතක වෙච්ච. In the piston pump, okay, Sanija. Very precisely, okay. Yes. Where else? ඊට වැඩිය simple තැනක් තියෙනවා දරුවෝ අමතක වෙලා හැමෝටම. Okay, let me reveal it without taking much more time. Yes. ඔගොල්ලෝ කවදා හරි ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ ගෙදර මේන් ඩෝ එක අන්ලොක් කරලා තියනවාද යතුරු ආරාම? එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔයගේ රූම් එකේ ඩෝ එක, එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔයාගේ කාමරේ තියෙන ඩ්‍රෝවර් එකේ ඩ්‍රෝවර් එක ඒකේ ලොක් එක අන්ලොක් කරලා තියද යතුරුකින්? What happens there? What happens there? Yes. Linear motion and rotary motion. You use in a rotary motion with your key, a linear motion happens inside to unlock. Yeah. So you have forgotten the simplest mechanism where it is applied. So don't worry. Let's move on. Yes. Now, how to do a simple mechanism description? We are going to learn how to do it technically, and we are going to find its vocabulary, and we are going to put that in a clear description. That's our challenge today. So before all, we are going to watch once again the mechanism in the video. So you watched it once again. Now you can remember what it is. Now remember, in STEM communication, what you're supposed to do is to use such diagrams, animations. They can explain things, but on top of diagrams and animations, you should be able to use your vocabulary and words and writing and speech to explain these mechanisms. So today we are going to learn that task as part of today's workshop's outcomes. Well, let's move on. First, we have to identify the different technical and academic terms used in this particular mechanism. What are they? they are the key parts. What are they? There is something called crank, pin, slot, and slide. So the first step is vocabulary, right? So you get the vocabulary into your material. Get them? Crank, pin, slot, slide. And if you feel like there are more, you can go for those parts as well, right? So we are simply describing the way as to how we can do it. And then we'll be moving on to see what are the other things. Now, here is a simple 2D drawing of the Scotch-Yoke mechanism. There, the parts are named. That is the second step. So you visualize it in a diagram, which part is what and how it is named, and the simple mechanism. Connecting rod, crank, pin, sliding yoke, and so on. So you understand the parts of that. And we are moving to describe it, how it works. The simplest idea, you see, there is a crank which is rotating, okay? And when the crank rotates, the pin moves. Where the pin moves, pin actually moves inside the slot, right? So what happens? This rotating crank and consequent pin movement causes slider to move back and forth, linear motion. Quite simple. So let's see how this whole idea could be placed in a structured mechanism description, right? In a very nicely structured mechanism description, there are 4 components. There has to be an introduction. Then the second half is about the components of the mechanism. And then the third episode is simply the process. And finally, the function. So if you put these things with vocabulary in your mind and with little English in your mind, in precise words and phrases, that is describing the structure of a mechanism. Here, the Scotch-Yoke. So we have to start with the introduction and then move on to the components and then describe the process and finally the function. Now, if I happen to ask a simple question, in this mechanism description, how many paragraphs should you maintain to describe this mechanism? Simple question. Easy to grasp. Respond in chat. How many paragraphs will you be using to describe this mechanism? Just look at the content and say. Sashni, you have to tell why too. Come on, I want. Yes, Devmani, you simply grasped it. Yes. Sashni, you use item 1 and 2 in one paragraph and 3 and 4 in second paragraph. But Puta, why have we got 4 components? Introduction, components, process, and function. If we decide the mechanism to be in 4 different sections, it should include 4 paragraphs. Maybe short, but they should come in 4 paragraphs. That's how typically the STEM communication is organized. They discuss one thematic idea in one particular paragraph. They do not mix things up. So there has to be 4 paragraphs. So others do not need to respond because we have told you the story. There are 4 components to describe in a mechanism: introduction, the component description, the process description, and the function in the list. Well, let's move on to describe the process. So let's look at the first describe the first sample introduction. Now we are dealing with introduction. So our introduction is on Scotch chalk, right? So see how simply the Scotch chalk is put in an introduction. The Scotch chalk is a mechanical device, okay? Mechanical device converts rotary motion to linear motion. Quite simple. There are two types of motions, the rotary and the linear motion. This is typically the introduction. And you can actually add, if you like, the latter half also into your introductory part. It is commonly used in engines and control systems. But even without the second, even the introduction itself is enough in the first sentence. So what is your introduction? Scotch chalk is a mechanical device. What it does? It converts rotary motion to linear motion. You got? Well, let's move on to the second half. What is it? The first part is introductory paragraph, and then the components. What are the components of the Scotch chalk? So it tells it's a mechanism, yeah. Mechanism consists of a rotating crank connected to a pin. A rotating crank connected to a pin. And you are describing the components. The pin moves within a straight slot attached to a slider. And we are still in the process. As the crank rotates, the pin follows a circular path. Because the pin is constrained within the slot, the slider moves in a straight line. So the process is clearly defined. Let me go back to the process. It tells the components. The mechanism consists rotating crank connected to a pin. The pin moves within a straight slot attached to a slider. L. The process goes further. The crank rotates, the pin follows the circular path. Why? Because the pin is constrained within the slot. The slider moves in a straight line. You got? Let's move and see what are the other components. Now we describe in the next paragraph the function clearly. What is the function? This conversion of motion from rotary to linear allows rotary energy to produce linear displacement efficiently. So this is academic and technical description of what? The Scotch chalk. Well, now stopping here at describing a mechanism, what did you understand? Actually, we did not go much into detail or we did not do much of an activity, but I happen to describe you the 4 steps, what is necessary and how it is to be done, right? And what did you understand as we applied our vocabulary knowledge into a real STEM context? When you do that, did you really feel it challenging or is it easy? Now, do you think that by knowing the vocabulary alone, you'll be able to do it? No. You should be able to know what are the basic structures and genre features, style features of a mechanism description. And then you should be able to put your vocabulary in very cohesive sentences and paragraphs to describe it properly. Now remember, learning academic literacy is not that easy, and it's not that easy for just in a simple English language classroom, it's not easy to be taught and, of course, to be learned and applied. So that is simply the idea I wanted to communicate. I want now all of you to respond me how you felt about the significance of vocabulary number one and how challenging it was to put your vocabulary knowledge into a cohesive mechanism description. Give me your response. Take about 2 minutes and give me your response. Maybe as a chat response here. Yes. Yes, Devmini, you found that yes, when you have the vocabulary and when you know what paragraph break and what order should it follow. Yes. Yes, Sashni. Vocabulary is the basis, then the style, and then the practice, which is actually what we have to do by reading, by writing, and by trying it in frequent, infrequence. Hello, friends. I want others also to respond. We have Minsadi, Sanija, Fatima, Devmini. Everyone, please respond. Devmini. Devmini, what do you want me to tell again? Everyone, please respond. I'm waiting for your responses. Yes, Sanija, yes. It's not only grasping vocabulary, then knowing the stylistic features of how it could be introduced, how systematically it could be presented. And the biggest thing is practicing it, practicing reading, practicing writing, and practicing articulating this idea in a scientifically cohesive way. So those are things that you have to master before you get into a university. Keep that in mind. If you are waiting until you get into the university to practice these things, university expects a different level, but you are performing at a different level so that it won't be as easy as you think, right? So that's why we said, yes. The total words in language, the special words used in a subject, okay? So you want me to describe that part, right? Okay. Now it's quite simple, Puta. The total words in a language has a finite if you just look at a dictionary. But it is infinite because every moment, every minute, the language is in use for people are exploring with language as well as with science. If you just look at the very meaning of mouse, it was referred at the early days to refer to a mammal who simply harms everyday human life. But mouse is now applied to a computer where you are using it, right? So that the meaning of the mouse at the beginning was to refer to a mammal, but now it is referred to a mechanical device. There is no any direct connection between mouse that it had in its mammal's meaning and the present day use. If you are invited to describe the mechanism of a mouse, which mouse will you be describing? It's not the mammal mouse, but the mouse in your computer, attached to your computer. There is a rotation motion, there is a gear, there is this and that. So this is how the vocabulary, this is how the language evolves, and how dynamic it is. So it's really interesting if you are to navigate through all these processes before you move on to your higher studies. That's simply the point. Devamini, did I answer your question, or do I need to explore it further? So friends, let's simply jump into the last episode of the presentation. Minsadi, you did not respond. Get me, you did not respond. I'm angry with you two guys, right? I've been talking a lot, explaining a lot, but none of you were responding. It's not none of you, none of Minsadi or Get me. Well, let's move on. Let's move on. So, there's a quick check. Which sentence is clearer? It moves and stuff happens, you say. As a simple, what? Casual speaker. It moves and stuff happens. Will it be an easy way for someone to understand? Or sentence B, the rotation of the crank causes linear displacement of the slider. Which one is clearer? No doubt. No doubt it's B. What makes B clearer? Because it's systematic. It uses the precise words, and it actually uses the technical explanation strategy, or rather technical explanation style, genre feature. So this is the difference between the English that you already know and the English that is expected in the university. And that is what makes your life easy in the university. So dear friends, we have to move into common problems associated with such mechanism writings. Now, in example A, you see stuff happens where you struggle. You struggle through verbs. What stuff is happening? If you cannot simply use the precise verb, instead if you use a very vague verb, it actually does not describe the mechanism, but it complicates the idea further. And if you miss the steps, which happens first, which happens in response to a previous action, right? If there isn't a logical order, still the mechanism writing is messing up. So when you're writing a mechanical description, you have to be precisely aware of the right verbs and right words and the steps without missing any step. And there has to be a very logical order in between the steps with precise verbs and words. That is what makes a description crystal clear. And I told you from the very first day, STEM communication is all about crystal clear communication. And that's what we are doing here in Akali STEM program. And Akali STEM has begun and we have completed 4 sessions of it, and some of you are part of it. And we actually wanted to get this workshop. Vague means, Puta, not precisely, not correctly the actual verb required. Now, stuff happens, there says, right? When you say stuff happens, what stuff happens, in which rate and where, which makes the things are not really clear enough. Well, so friends, we are moving to the last part of the discussion. What is it? In your STEM journey in the university, you have to deal with stuff like lab reports, research papers, technical manuals, and lots of other technical, academic, and scientific stuff for which you need lots of practice. If you are going to face these things without knowing what they are, your first year of university is going to be a real mess. But if you know all these things before, well in advance to your university life, then you are going to be part of its smooth movie. So be in touch. And for that, we are introducing you to the Akalis. And now get ready to see what we are doing in Akalis. Here's a little short video. So you have seen what we have got in Akalis program, what they are. Shall I give you another round of play of the same video for you to understand what is there in? Did you get what we cover in Akalis program? Did you get? Can you name a few components that we cover in our program? You have seen it in this short promotional video. Yep, there are many academic literacy, okay? You pick one. What about the others? Hello, friends. I want your response. I want you all respond. If you want, I'll be playing it once again for you to capture. I'm sure this time you got it. It's not only academic literacy, but also a lots of other stuff. So those are the stuff that you should know by the time you get to university. If you are not aware of those things, what happens is you're going to be a bit disappointed and you'll be simply struggling through your semester 1 and 2 to get to know what they are, and by then things will be too late. That's why we are introducing a Callistium program before you begin your university studies. So bring this message to your friends, and for you as well, quickly join the Callistium program, and I'll give you another video which actually has been already shared on our group, but I'll be playing it here again for you to tell how you can join with us. Some of you are already joined, and I'm inviting the others also to join and bring your friends to the course, that you'll be helping you and your friends and this country in the larger picture to help move along efficient STEM education. Well, so my dear kids, you can visit the course page as you can see on screen, and you can navigate further on what we are doing there. And what we have done through workshop 1 and 2 is quite simply giving you an idea of the kind of challenge you are supposed to face in the university, and giving you the solution where you can find resolution for all the challenges that you are about to face in your university. So join with us. And if you have any questions, now it is time for you to raise those questions. If you haven't got any question, thank you very much for joining. And I think I have not wasted your time for 4 hours in first episode and second episode. I tried my best to give you some inputs that will make you ready for your STEM degree program. And of course, that marks the end of this series of workshops, which introduce you to the Ecosystem program, and looking forward to see you in the program.